this chaos. 1,000 people in an iron box. 18 years I've waited for this moment.
In order to be engaging, sci-fi must be relevant. So, if you're writing about a future scenario that revolves largely around a drastic change in the way we live, it must often directly correlate to the way we live now. The more things change, etc. Because of this, we're beginning to accrue a tiresome number of sci-fi actioners that deal with our declining environment and the matter of the ever-widening gap between the have and the have-nots, such as Avatar, Elysium, and the Hunger Games movies, which deliver their Revolution Now message with all the subtlety and effectiveness of a lone nutbag pitching a shoe at their least favourite world leader.
This is your world. The train saved humanity.
No less heavy-handed, although more allegorical and, dare I say it, intelligent, oops, I just lost Michael Bay's audience, is Snowpiercer, a post-apocalyptic piece from the 45-year-old Korean director Bong-joon.
The engine lasts forever. The population must always be kept in balance.
Based on the graphic novel Le Transpersonnage, the movie opens as planet Earth is frozen solid in a failed attempt to cure atmospheric warming, destroying all life on the planet. A small number of survivors find refuge in the transglobal supertrain Snowpiercer, which completes a full circuit each year, and 18 years later, revolt is fomenting in the tail section, where the beleaguered lower classes are kept unwashed and starving while the first-class passengers live luxuriously in the forward cars.
Eternal order flows from the sacred engine. We must occupy our preordained position.
The reluctant leader of the revolt is Curtis Everett, played by Chris Evans in a role quite different from the Star-Spangled Man we're used to seeing him portray. Curtis is driven and single-minded, and while recognised as a benevolent force amongst his own, has no compunctions of falling outside the character set of the hero archetype we're used to. He kills without mercy, will sacrifice his own if need be, and has a far darker past than any Western good guy could handle.
We control the engine, we control the world. This time we take the engine.
Then what?
We kill him.
This is the first of many departures from the de rigueur of the average sci-fi actioner, and the subversion of genre tropes pile up with the bodies in the bloody battle to take the train's forward car, which houses the engine and its creator, both worshipped by the forward passengers as divine. One of the less fanciful notions in the film, because let's face it, most people will believe anything. Right, Scientologists?
My friend, you suffer from the misplaced optimism of the doomed.
Along for the ride is Namgung Min-soo, the train's long-imprisoned security engineer and remorseless junkie, played by Korean superstar Kang-Ho Song, speaking only in his native tongue throughout the film. Cynical, mercenary, and resolutely refusing to be impressed by Curtis's zeal or the worthiness of his goal, Min-soo is the only man who can provide access through the many security gates between the desperate band of revolutionaries and the unseen Mr. Wolford, who keeps the train moving through the frozen wastes.
Are you Namgoon Min-soo? Security specialist?
Also standing in the way of revolution is the reliably chameleonic Tilda Swinton as Security Chief Mason, the bastard offspring of Ian Paisley and Mary Whitehouse. Well, you've got Google, look them up. Swinton spends every second of screen time devouring the claustrophobic steampunk scenery like a three-course meal while lending her calculating schoolmistress of the apocalypse enough depth and ambiguity to keep you guessing as to exactly how she fits into her, quote, preordained role.
Precisely 74% of you shall die.
As much as it is a character piece, it is also an action movie, and these scenes are distinctly unpleasant and visceral. Private gun ownership in Korea is illegal. So in keeping with many action movies from that country, gunplay is limited only to the abrupt and ruthless execution of innocents by authority figures, whereas one-to-one good-on-evil combat takes the far more brutal form of percussive smackdowns with hammers, machetes, axes, and any other object that can be comfortably wielded in one hand. This bloody melee makes up almost the entirety of the action in the film, which, while tense and engaging, probably lacks the number of explosions most Western audiences demand. The quiet spells in between, while not only a good deal lengthier than many may be prepared to endure, are by turns contemplative, dreamlike, and in one particular scene with one foot firmly in the absurd. Now, there's been a great deal made, especially on this show, of the conflict between the director and his distributor Harvey Weinstein over the final cut of the film. This film represents the full stretch of the director's vision, whereas Weinstein had intended to cut a full 20 minutes from the duration in order to make it more palatable to the desperately short attention span of the modern moviegoer. Seeing it on screen, I personally was glad that Weinstein never got his way, but by the same token, it is easy to see his point. The film does not open with a big action set piece, nor does it rush to its finale in a hail of blood, fire and snappy asides by the unflappable hero.
The engine is sacred, and Wilford is divine!
For seasoned cinephiles, it's a welcome breath of fresh air. But mainstream audiences demand formula because formula works, and Snowpiercer's denial of the nuts and bolts of audience expectation will only serve to alienate those who prefer a mindless rollercoaster ride with their overpriced bucket of salty crap. The film is not perfect. The allegory of the train and its passengers is more than a little heavy-handed. Bong's feel for English dialogue seems a little unsophisticated and clunky here and there. Evans spends a good deal of the movie doing little more than scowling past the camera from under a knitted brow, and the plot itself will disintegrate fairly rapidly if you take your time to think about it too much. But the immersive atmosphere, the artful and engaging performances, and the continuous build and release of tension as both the story and the train move toward their final climactic destination more than make up for these shortcomings. The bittersweet ending of Bong's breakout movie, The Host, had some mainstream audiences howling for blood, but few could deny its emotional heft. The conclusion of Snowpiercer lacks some of that punch, but is no less bleak for it. Outside of the venerated critic circle, online reaction to the film is already split fairly evenly between those singing its praises and those decrying it as the dumbest pile of crap they've ever seen. I'm in the former camp myself. Snowpiercer is smart, enthralling, and beautiful to look at. It's a must-see tonic for this year's endless parade of paint-by-the-numbers blast-em-ups, and I'm giving it a hell yes.
Let me go ahead.